Chapter 6, Back to Their Roots. Sunday, September 18, 2016, after barely surviving the lethal attack of the tent robotics, which resulted in his injuries and Maurice Fall's death, Shigeru had given Lorena the liberty to choose where they would take shelter. And much to everyone's surprise, Lorena had picked the oddest place, which was just a few blocks away from the tent robotics building. Wearing oversized sunglasses, a bright red cotton hoodie, and black skinny jeans, Amanda waited a few seconds for the traffic signal to turn green at the famous Shibuya crossing. Staring at the carry tray that she was holding, she momentarily checked the condition of the drinks she had just ordered from Starbucks. Matcha green tea creme frappuccino for Tammy, white chocolate creme frappuccino for Lorena, an espresso for Shigeru, and cafe americano for herself. Perfect, she said to herself, looking at the street, jam-packed with swarms of people trying to get a piece of the weekend action. The Shibuya district of Tokyo was probably the busiest part of Japan's urban area, and it had been Amanda's home for many years. She had walked in its shopping district hundreds of times, and when the light turned green, Amanda ran towards the white Toyota Hiace with heavily tinted windows, parked on a pay-by-the-hour parking area. Sliding the door open, she handed all their respective drinks. Being handed her Grande 16 fluid ounces, and removing the lid of her plastic cup, Lorena licked the whipped cream off the top of her drink before offering it to Shigeru. Smiling at her, he said, "No thanks," before drinking his espresso in a gulp. Inside the van, while Shigeru recuperates from his surgical treatment, Lorena worked all day trying to analyze the things they got from the apartment. Gaining access to Maurice's laptop and personal email, she had discovered that Maurice was telling the truth. He did indeed work for Peter, but he also took orders from Paul Takuma in secret, betraying Peter in the process. Browsing through the emails, Lorena took an interest in a string of conversations between Maurice and an unknown sender. The email warned Maurice about his involvement with the tent robotics and his betrayal of them. Getting Shigeru's attention, she said, "Shigeru, take a look at what I've found." Handing him the computer and laying it down on his lap. He then began analyzing the strings of emails sent by the unidentified sender. "I just traced the IP address of that email and it led back to Cebu, Philippines. So what do you have in mind? Remember when I told you about the burnt documents I found inside Papa's vault's furnace?" Lorena asked. "In the ashes, written on a fragment of what I believe to be the envelope used, it said Cebu, Philippines. I believe it was the return address. I'm booking the earliest flight to Cebu. It's time for us to go home. Will you be willing to come with us?" Lorena asked. "I'm willing to follow you wherever you go, but are you certain of your decision?" Shigeru asked. "Of all the people, you're the one who knows the Yūrei more than anyone. You know what he is capable of doing. Aren't you even wondering why we're still alive? I need to find out." "Amanda, what do you think?" Shigeru asked. "I leave the decision to Lorena. Tammy, how about you? Would you like to go back home?" Lorena asked. "When is our trip?" she replied, in agreement. Lorena booked the earliest flight possible to Cebu, Philippines, as previously discussed. They arrived at the Mactan Cebu International Airport at around 6:15 a.m. At the tarmac, everybody had their eyes locked on Tammy, not only because she didn't have limbs but because she was running faster than anyone with legs. "Amanda, why isn't Tammy wearing her prosthetic legs?" Lorena asked. "Oh, she left them in the luggage counter. She wanted to be more comfortable on the trip." "Okay, I see," she replied. After so many years, everyone was so excited to visit the Philippines again. Lorena and Amanda tried to figure out why they hadn't thought of going home before and had to wait so many years, but ended up laughing because they couldn't figure out why. After collecting all their luggage and personal belongings, they then took a cab and went straight to the Radisson Blu Hotel. "Lorena, can we drop by the mall when it opens? I need to buy a few things," Amanda asked. Oh yeah, I guess everyone needs to buy something. Let's all go together, Lorena replied. You girls go on ahead with your shopping, Shigeru said. I need to take care of a few things, if that's okay. Okay, Lorena replied. Upon reaching the Radisson Blu, they went straight to the concierge and inquired about the rooms that they had previously booked. They had separate rooms, one each for Shigeru and Lorena, while Amanda and Tammy decided to share. After they settled down in their respective quarters, they rested for a while and had breakfast in the hotel restaurant called Feria. The buffet table was oozing with plates of seafood. The oysters they served were most tempting, as well as the sweeter-tasting baked scallops, lobster, and some Madagascar shrimp. The ambience and decor of the restaurant were fascinating, with a miniature Ferris wheel containing cupcakes that Tammy found very creative. The three sisters and Shigeru split up after having breakfast. Lorena, Amanda, and Tammy went shopping for clothes, while Shigeru went to Danao to meet up with an asset on the list of guns he wanted to buy. Known for making quality replicas of known firearms, Danao is well known for its thriving backyard business in Cebu. Renting a Chevrolet Trailblazer shortly before noon, Shigeru went to Danao City to meet with his asset. The meeting was to take place at the Lola Luz Countryside Bake Shop, in front of the Gaisano Capital Mall. He waited for 30 minutes before the black 1998 Toyota Hilux parked behind him with its hazard lights flashing. It was his asset. On the back of the pickup truck, inside the old military duffel bag, there were two caliber .45 handguns, an M4 carbine, and a .27 Filipino bolo sword with a rosewood handle and a black leather scabbard. Shigeru took the bolo as a good joke. His asset even offered him a suppressor for the M4, but since he couldn't trust his life on a backyard production for burst mode, he rejected the offer. As Shigeru loaded the guns into his SUV, he heard police siren sounds coming from a distance, parking right in front of him. He stayed composed, closing the door of the SUV with his guns just lying on the passenger seat. Shigeru stood beside the SUV while he waited for the enforcer. Moments later, the enforcer finally finished whatever he was doing and approached Shigeru's vehicle, while taking note of the license plate. Good afternoon, the enforcer greeted Shigeru. Good afternoon to you too. What can I do for you, sir? Shigeru asked. Oh. Are you Japanese? Yes, I'm Japanese. I just arrived here this morning. I just picked up some groceries there in the Gaisano Mall. I see, is this your car? The enforcer asked. No sir, it's a rente car, let me just get the proper documents. Shigeru took the documents from the glove compartment. Poring over the rental car documents, the enforcer also asked for his driver's license. Shigeru pulled out his wallet from his pocket, took out his international driver's license and handed it to the enforcer. This is an international driver's license, can I also see your passport? The enforcer asked. Handing his passport to the enforcer. Okay, everything seems to be in order, the enforcer said, giving back Shigeru all of his documents. But before I let you go, can I ask you a personal question? Sure. What is it? Are you military? The enforcer asked. Shigeru gave the enforcer a knowing smile. Yes, I was. Retired lieutenant, Japanese Armed Forces, how did you know? You have a well-built physique, the enforcer said and added. You know here, in Danao, we are known for our Baltic guns. You know, homemade guns. Danao-made guns, yes I have heard of this on the news. Oh that's good, you see here in Danao, there are a lot of wretched people who would sell you poor quality guns, and this is becoming a big problem in our community. Reaching into his pocket, the enforcer took out a calling card and handed it to Shigeru. Call me if you want to buy guns, I can give you a good discount on a .22 caliber Ingram machine pistol, M4 carbine, and .45 caliber handguns. These are all good quality, I can assure you. Shigeru laughing. If I know somebody who wants to buy guns, I will give him your card, Shigeru promised. That would be great. You have a good day, Mr. Shigeru. You too, officer. You have a good day now, Shigeru replied, waving goodbye. It was getting dark when Shigeru got back to the Radisson Blu Hotel. Using a luggage cart and with the use of a sealed diplomatic pouch, he carried his guns to his room, while messaging the girls that he had arrived. A knock at the front door. Peeking through the peephole, Shigeru saw the three sisters and opened the door. So, how was your day? Lorena asked. Good. It went pretty well. That's great to hear. I want you to try on these clothes that I bought for you, Lorena said, handing Shigeru the shirts as she noticed the diplomatic pouch on the carpet. Tammy, Amanda, can you go on ahead and check our reservation downstairs? I need to talk with Shigeru in private. Okay, Onsen, Tammy replied. After locking the door behind her, Lorena immediately questioned Shigeru about the contents of the diplomatic pouch. With the pouch unsealed, its contents revealed an old military duffel bag with the guns that Shigeru had bought. Those guns look like they have been hammered, she said disgustedly. And is that a Filipino bolo sword? Yes, I had that one discounted, Shigeru replied. Okay, old man, let's go to my room. I have other gifts for you other than those clothes. Crossing the hallway towards the other room, Lorena opened the door with her key and immediately took out an enormous universal gun case inside her cabinet, opening it in front of Shigeru. It contained an M4 carbine with a suppressor, 2 Glock 19 pistols, 7 rifle magazines, 6 handgun magazines, and 4 military grenades. Where did you get these? Shigeru asked. Old man, I'm starting to lose my patience with you. I'm an arms dealer, remember? I have 6 container trucks out there in a warehouse in the port of Cebu filled with guns. Okay, don't get mad. You think you can provide me with a Smith & Wesson tactical knife? No, I think the Filipino bolo sword suits you, you're both ancient. Lorena said before shutting the door behind her. Lorena's unrest. Thursday, October 6, 2016 at 7:10 a.m. Staring out of her hotel room window, she sipped her coffee a little, feeling the cold morning dew against her skin. The waiting had made her very restless, like an itch in the palm of her hands, but Shigeru wanted her to be more patient and wait. She recalled the days when they went hunting for rabbits. Shigeru made her wait for a very long time, and when she asked him when would be the right time, he answered, "It's starting to get dark, and soon the rain will fall." During a rainstorm, the rabbits would have to stay in their burrows where they would feel secure and safe. During this time, when they least expect it, that would be a perfect time, Shigeru answered. Strike them where they are unprepared, appear where you're not anticipated. Sun Tzu, Art of War. In mid-afternoon, on the rocky shores of Barangay Tangki, a few fishermen were sewing their nets for repairs, while on the elevated concrete platform were a group of men and women playing a friendly game of mahjong, a common pastime with a glass of tanduay being passed around in circles. A few fish buyers from the other barangay were there with their banyeras, tin tubs, hoping to get a fair price on the catch, waiting for the fishermen to arrive. While playing mahjong, Lito, one of the players, noticed the little girl carrying a rectangular Tupperware container and asked what was inside. Looking at a wide variety of rice cakes, he bought 100 pesos worth and offered these to everybody. Moments later, one of the elders spotted an incoming pump boat showing on the horizon. The signature written on the front of the boat said El Capitan, and the men aboard were signaling a good catch. As soon as the pump boat reached the shore, they secured the line and started to unload their catch, which was somewhat better than usual. There were buckets of tarnagi, Spanish mackerel, maya, red snapper, galunggong, mackerel, dillies, anchovy, and tihi, sea urchins. Just a handful of the catch was their own, while the majority were purchased. In recent years, buy and sell have been common since their catch has become scarce in their area due to illegal fishing. Meanwhile, preparing for her daily sale of charcoal, twisted donut, Shella May, a 35-year-old single mother of 3, puts on her apron and prepares her Tupperware plastic container containing her delicious homemade twisted donut. Being half Indian, she was unspeakably gorgeous with unbelievable hazel eyes, medium dark brown skin, and attractive size breasts, which she considered as her ultimate asset, having a naturally comedic personality. Her mother, Mala, was of South Asian ethnic descent, originally from India, while her father's identity was unknown to everyone. Losing her mother because of a stray bullet that had hit their roof while they were fast asleep, she had raised her 3 daughters, put them to school, and provided their daily necessities single-handedly. Kind-hearted in nature, she kept a generous spirit among the less fortunate in their barangay, giving more than she can afford to those who need it most. Although gentle in nature, she has the tendency to be savage once provoked, preventing the disrespectful men to distance themselves, show respect, earning the title mayor. Having fed all her children and completed all her chores, she momentarily gave instruction to her eldest daughter before setting out on her way. Walking out of the house, and into the busy street, she began to yell her signature shout, "Sharkoi! Sharkoi! Billy na kayo nang sharkoi!" While catering to her first customers, a few teenage students in school uniforms, she suddenly found herself shocked to see a familiar person surrounded by several people. Frantically running towards the direction of the Baybayin, Shell May struggled to control her emotions while accidentally losing her twisted donuts along the way. "Auntie Tata! Auntie Tata!" Shella May yelled. Tata was one of the barrio's elders, with an obnoxious laugh that had become her trademark among the locals. Although somewhat overweight, at her age of 82, she was remarkably active and outgoing, always looking after her less fortunate neighbors and organizing relief efforts with barangay officials. She was among the women playing mahjong, and was also among the few close friends of Lorena. "Pisting bata a animal. Nonsa man kodai. Nganong sige ka yao yao." Tata shouted back, swearing. "Lorena is here," Shella May exclaimed, trying to catch her breath. "Which Lorena are you talking about?" "Lorena, my childhood friend. The daughter of Samuel and Monet Bernadette, the sister of Tammy and Amanda." Tata froze for a second, staring at Shella May in disbelief, until she saw her with her own 2 eyes. Dazzled by her elegant appearance, wearing a white chiffon blouse and cuffed skinny jeans, she was looking more beautiful than ever. Pushing the mahjong tiles aside, Tata rose to her feet and clutched her friend in a fierce embrace. Staring into each other's eyes, they started laughing so heartily until tears welled up in their eyes. "My child, take a look at you. So beautiful," Tata said in astonishment. "Auntie Tata, I'm so happy to see you again." And Shella May, looking at her from head to toe, "Your beauty still surpasses mine, even with crappy old clothing. What can I say? It isn't my fault that I was born to be a natural goddess," she said, hilariously lifting her boobs. "Nonsa man kodai?" Lorena asked, laughing. "You haven't changed. Oh my God. Come, sit. Tell us everything that has happened. We thought you were dead. How are your sisters?" Tata asked. "Both Tammy and Amanda have done very well. Amanda has a bachelor's degree in psychology, while Tammy graduated from the University of Tokyo at the age of 18. She's a prodigious child like Father Samuel." "Oh my good Lord," Tata said, with tears of amazement and wonder. Momentarily distracted by the sudden appearance of 3 children, Shella May immediately introduced her daughters, giving Lorena the shock of her life. They were adorable children, with almond-shaped eyes close to her own. "Why do they have chinky eyes? Is their father Chinese? None of them have those fabulous eyes. None of them. They all have different fathers. Oh my. pausing a few seconds in disbelief. But you have a strong relationship with their fathers, right? I never knew which of them was their father, she said, leaving Lorena speechless and simply embracing her instead. Staring at her in the eye, Lorena replied, I'm here now. You don't have to sell Sharkoi anymore. Having so much trust and respect for her Auntie Tata and Shell May, she immediately told them all that had happened, revealing the true purpose of her visit. Privately discussing all of her issues, the situation turned out to be too much for them to digest, but their complete trust in Lorena remained intact. And although they knew that they would be risking their lives, they did not hesitate to help her, for she was family. Knowing that they had to prepare for the imminent threat, Lorena had put the two in charge of the defense in the event of an attack, giving them access to her high-powered weapons stashed away somewhere in the city. It was a task that isn't new to them. Just like old time, Shella May said. Yes, just like old time, she answered. Aside from the two women, the whole community was so happy to see her again and was very excited to know the condition of their lives in Japan. The men requested her to buy them liquor, which she did not fail to disappoint, and even chose to join them. During their heavy drinking session, one of the neighbors, getting too much to drink during their talk, inadvertently said something about a rumor that was going around that her father Samuel might still be alive, giving Lorena a little bit of a shock. Who told you that? She asked. No, he's just kidding. He had just too much to drink, said Shella May, but Lorena was unconvinced. No, you don't say something like that unless you have a source, Lorena said, grabbing the man by the collar and pushing him to the ground. By this time, Tata, awakened from her sleep, rushed towards Lorena, who was out of control. Enough, enough. Lorena, I said enough. Tata screamed as she forced Lorena to lie down on the folding bed that she laid on. Go home, all of you, go home. All of the men who had too much to drink went home, while Shella May and Boyet, both good friends, remained. And with a small pillow placed beneath her head, she rested. What happened? Tata asked. Egbert told Lorena about rumors that her father was still alive, Shella May answered. Oh, that figures. Okay, you two go on ahead and take your children with you. There is still school tomorrow, she said, addressing Shella May. A few minutes later, with a bad headache, Lorena roused up from the folding bed. She looked around, and requested a cup of coffee from her Auntie Tata. After she was given the cup of coffee, she turned to her auntie and asked, Auntie Tata, please tell me the truth regarding my father, she asked. I have heard those rumors, but they're only rumors. I would not take them seriously. Egbert told me that he has been sighted in 4 different locations. Mandaue, Noga, Cordova and in the Compostela Valley in Davao. Is this true? Sorry my child, but I really don't know. Auntie Tata, the reason why we're here is because of a series of incidents that have taken place in Japan. Somebody murdered Peter Katsuyori, following an attempt to kill Amanda and kidnap Tammy, Lorena said in a weary voice. All of our investigation has led us here in Cebu, and now I'm being informed that my father might still be alive. How would you want me to react to that? She added. Do you think your father has anything to do with the incidents that you mentioned? Father has always lived an enigmatic life even when we were a child. Everybody knew he was doing something illegal, but they just don't know what. I need to find him if he is indeed alive. Having said that, in the course of their conversation, a familiar face suddenly appeared from nowhere. Oh my gosh! Arling Nora! Lorena cried out as she stood up, and embraced her tight. Look at you. You haven't changed a bit, you're still sexy and beautiful. Lorena added. Nora, aka Leonora Talisic, was another close friend, and just like her Auntie Tata, she considered her as a family and was her mother's best friend. When the Great Fire occurred, she was the one who adopted them until the day they went to Japan. Almost in tears, she touched Loreena's face, looked into her eyes, and said, "Those sweet, chinky eyes. My child, you have grown so beautiful. Were you able to marry a foreigner?" Leonora asked. "Come, let's sit down, tell me everything." Conversing with Leonora brought back fond memories of their life in Tanki. Memories of their life after the fire, when they were living with them. Reliving their funny antiques, both ladies laughed heartily, up to the moment Lorena asked, "Where is Randy?" Leonora's obnoxious laugh was unexpectedly cut short. Eventually calming down and wiping her tears from too much laughter, she dropped into silence and composed herself, while Lorena waited. Leonora attempted to speak but struggled, preventing her tears from flowing down. "Arling Nora, what's wrong? Where is Randy?" she asked for the second time. Looking her straight in the eye, with her weary appearance, Leonora said that Randy had died on the day they got abducted, shocking Lorena and making her speechless. She continued by narrating what had occurred on that fateful day when they were still living there in the other barangay with her relatives. She said that during that heavy storm, they suddenly heard a loud sound coming from downstairs. She described it as the sound of a person struggling. Afraid that she might see a burglar in the house, she woke up Randy and asked him to check what was going on. There was a struggle, and just when he was about to catch one of the men wearing a ski mask, they shot him dead. Struggling to control her emotions, she added that after they had buried Randy, she decided to go back there in the very same spot where their house turned into ashes to keep all the fond memories to remember Randy by. Lorena couldn't believe what Leonora had to go through on that fateful day, losing Randy just like that because of their abduction. Somehow, she felt responsible and wept, mercifully asking forgiveness while Leonora tried to suppress the growing emotions between them. With the little strength that she had, Leonora tried to raise her from her knees, wiping her tears, and said, "My child, don't make yourself responsible for what had happened. Let's be grateful that not all of my loved ones have perished. I'm so happy that you and your sisters are safe." Rubbing her arms a few times, Leonora felt that things were becoming too dramatic and said, "Hey, come, cheer up. We're supposed to be celebrating, and buy a few more beers." "What? I'm barely getting sober," Lorena complained. "You're such a baby. Come, let's drink a few more beers." Looking for someone who can buy a few more beers, Leonora spots Esteban mending his fishing net. "Teban," she yelled. Approaching in response to Leonora's call, he answered, "Yes? What can I do for my love?" "Love your face," she said, with sarcasm in her voice. "Buy us a couple more beers, one case of San Miguelites," she said, turning to Lorena and asking for the money. "Oh, and please fetch Tata and the mayor, wake them up, and turn on the karaoke machine." "All right," Esteban responded. Although Tata and Shella May were both fast asleep, due to Lorena's presence, they just both hurried to the Baybane and continued their drinking. With a microphone in one hand and a bottle of beer in the other, Leonora started singing to the tune of ABBA's Dancing Queen, urging the whole barangay to dive into the celebration. Unlike any other common community where people will start moaning that a heavy sound system is still playing past 10 o'clock in the evening, it's different in the slums of Talisiri. People got used to it, and they embraced it as part of their everyday lives. From time to time, someone would complain, but not to the extent of calling the barangay tanid. At the break of dawn, only Leonora and Lorena were the last women standing. Shella May helped empty the bottles, but since it was a weekday, she had to leave early to prepare for her daughters to go to school, while Tata laid on one of the bamboo tables, totally wasted. Staring at the men and women lying down on whatever surface available, they looked at each other and laughed. "We've ransacked this place real good." "Yeah, we did. Totally ransacked," they said to themselves, laughing. "Come on, let's go to my house and have a cup of coffee, and I'll give you fresh clothes so that you can take a shower at the Pozo public bath," Leonora said. Looking at the houses around her, she noticed that most of them were still made from light materials. You know, I was hoping that when I came back here, all of the houses would be made of concrete, Lorena said while they were walking. You know how hard life is out here, none of the people have enough money to feed their children, and besides, it's more exciting to have sex when the house is shaking, Leonora said teasingly. When they got to Leonora's place, Lorena was stunned to see the condition of her house. She was shocked, not only because it was of poor quality construction, but rather, it was a bunch of scraps made to look like a house. Indulging her profound curiosity, she went inside and peeked through the entire house. Half of the house had no flooring, and as for the other half, it was not even proper flooring. It was just a linoleum covered with Nora's bamboo bed on top of it. Stepping at the edge of the bed, Lorena felt the running water coming from the PVC piping buried underneath the bed. Is that dirty water coming from the neighbor? What? There's water flowing underneath your bed. Oh yeah, that's right of way. Arling Nora, why is your house like this? It's more comfortable than you think, Leonora said, trying to convince. Never mind, I'll buy you a new house. No. I cannot leave this place. This place is all I have to remember Randy by. Okay, so we'll demolish everything and build you a new one. Would that make you happy? Okay, Leonora replied, smiling. Come. Tell me all about your adventures, the life that you have lived, and the beautiful places you've been, Leonora said, picking up the thermos from the table. On that small foldable wooden table, on low-ceilinged, cramped quarters, Lorena started telling stories of how their misfortune turned into good fortune. It was like good old days. The signature obnoxious laugh of her Arling Nora surprisingly became a piece of music to her ears. Leonora, on the other hand, was so much amazed by all the stories Lorena shared, most especially how little Tammy had grown up into a beautiful independent lady. Right after finishing with her coffee, Lorena asked Leonora if she could borrow a duster so that she could take a shower at the Pozo. Besides giving her a duster dress, she handed her a soap dish, shampoo and conditioner, an oversized beach towel, and a new set of clean clothes. While making her way to the Pozo, she suddenly remembered that she hadn't informed her sisters, or Shigeru, of her whereabouts. Thinking that they are surely worried by now, she went back to the house to search for her cell phone, but wasn't able to find it. Don't worry about it. Go ahead, take your bath. I will be asking around to see if anyone may have found it. I'll ask Tata, maybe she kept it when we got drunk last night, Leonora said. With an expensive cell phone like that, she knew that if somebody found it, chances are, she would never get it back. This is how it was like in the slums. Haunted by the thought that her biological father might indeed still be alive, she felt indifferent, not because she didn't care, but because she had already forgotten whatever connection that they had as the year went by. It was at this moment that she thought of the possible connection to the array. Knowing that her sisters were probably beyond frantic by now, she hurriedly called a taxicab and went straight to her hotel. A few minutes later, her yellow cab arrived at the Radisson Blu Hotel, and as soon as she got to the lobby, she immediately saw her sisters waiting. Onsen. Immediately spotting her sister at the lobby, Tammy came running towards Lorena, embracing her tightly, while Amanda stood at the back watching, both angry and close to tears. Staring at Amanda, Lorena, feeling guilty, approached and embraced her as well. No other words were uttered. After this meeting, she went upstairs using the elevator. Knocking at the door. Shigeru opened the door and walked back to his desk in front of his laptop. You know my cell phone got lost, Lorena said. I know, he replied. What do you mean you know? I was there. I placed a special tracking device on your cell phone. But instead of tracing it back to you, it led me to a heavily tinted, white Ford Ranger with customized body stickers. And when I began to inspect the vehicle, The driver ran away, Shigeru said, looking at her, feeling disappointed. You know, if you only told me that you were planning to put your two sisters' lives in danger, I would not have agreed on bringing them along. Have you gone completely insane? Do you have a death wish? Drinking, dancing, singing, and even sleeping with the enemy. Keeping her silence, Lorena sat down on the edge of the bed, took one of the pillows, and squeezed it slightly towards her stomach. Seeing this, Shigeru opened his lower right desk drawer and peeked inside, and checked its content. There's an antacid here on my desk drawer to relieve you of the pain, Shigeru said as he handed the medication. Reaching out to accept the drug, Lorena also took out a bottle of mineral water from the mini-fridge and swallowed the pill. Who were you with last night? Friends and neighbors, Lorena spoke softly. Can you be more specific because one of your friends might have deliberately stolen your cell phone to track our location? Have you ever thought of that? Listening to what he had just said, she started to recall the events that had transpired last night but failed to remember. I met up with an old friend, Arling Nora, but she could not have taken my cell phone. Who is this Arling Nora? Leonora Talisic, she replied. Lorena, what are you doing? She has been there from the very beginning. There shouldn't be any question on whether she's an asset or not. Knocking at the door. Opening the door for the two sisters, Shigeru was looking pretty frustrated and told Amanda to knock some sense into her sister's head, while he took some fresh air, as well as a stick of cigarette. Seeing her sister lying face up with her arms on her forehead, Amanda went to the other side of the bed and began massaging Lorena's temples with gentle fingertips. It was such a relief considering the unpleasant hangover from last night. Tammy, on the other hand, sat on the bed and started disassembling her computer-powered prosthetics and laid down with both of them. The sisters cuddled up together, feeling each other's warmth. 2.5 hours later, Shigeru returned to his room only to find that the three sisters had fallen asleep on his bed. The Katsuyori Foundation, Cebu. Friday, August 11, 2017, a year later, the Katsuyori sisters decided to go back to Cebu to hunt down the Yūrei, but his trail has gone cold and has remained silent over the years. Occasionally traveling to Japan on matters requiring their physical presence, the Katsuyori sisters have taken turns to ensure the continuity of the Katsuyori Global and Katsuyori Foundation, appointing proper officers to take care of their affairs whenever they are away. As for Lorena and Shigeru, deciding to tie the knot, they finally got married and live happily. Phone ringing. Hello. Good morning, I'm looking for Mrs. Lorena Katsuyori. Yes, speaking. I'm calling with regards to the property that you're inquiring about at the Vista Grande subdivision in Pardo. Oh, yes, I'm glad you called. We're very interested in buying this property, and if you can schedule a meeting with us, we're hoping to see the area as soon as possible. Hopefully anytime this week. Well, Mrs. Katsuyori, we can have an ocular visit to the property tomorrow, if you're available. That would be perfect. And one more thing, my sister is interested in this one piece of land that you have on your website located in Tugbongan Consolation. It's for a children's foundation. Oh, all right. But isn't that a bit far from Vista Grande, in case you decide to push through with the purchase? Well, it's up to my sister to decide. Let's just make the arrangements for now. Are you free at 8 in the morning? We can meet you at the front gate. Oh, okay. 8 a.m. is perfect. Well, okay, let's do the inspection tomorrow, and you just talk to my sister with regards to the property in Consolation. That's all for now. Okay, thank you, Mrs. Katsuyori. I'll see you tomorrow and have a good day. You have a good day as well. End of call. The next day, right after they approved the property from their ocular visit, they went straight to the Consolation property that Tammy was very interested in buying. Looking like a desolated jungle from a storybook, with a scraped-out rusted Mercedes-Benz jammed up between a coconut tree and a concrete block wall, standing on top of a pile of rubble. Tammy Katsuyori has given it a thumbs up. For this 900 square meters of a vacant lot, at the heart of Tugbongan Consolation, the new Katsuyori Foundation Cebu building was to be constructed. Lorena, Amanda, and Shigeru, with seemingly horrified faces, stood still and shook their heads in disbelief. Friday, June 29, 2018, outside the garden where the round tables were situated, Amanda, Lorena, and Shigeru stood watchful in the presence of the infamous gossip culture of the Filipino, while taking pride in the accomplishment of Tammy, who single-handedly spearheaded the completion of the building. After 10 months and 18 days of extensive planning and construction, the Katsuyori Foundation Cebu building was finally completed, and today was its ribbon cutting. Among the highlights of the event was the performance of a group of disabled children, dancing to the tune of Macarena. It was a very heartwarming sight for everyone, bringing tears to everyone's eyes, particularly to their respective parents. And with the goodness of the foundation, with the declaration of the foundation's commitment to sponsoring the education of the children's present, people were just astounded. With the full support of her sisters, Tammy Katsuyori has undoubtedly made good use of the substantial amount of money her father had sacrificed, honoring his memory, working day and night with her team, handpicking the families and the organization that needs the money above all. Right after the ribbon cutting, speaking with a group of volunteers, Tammy had the idea of sponsoring a mini-concert to raise awareness of the importance of the right of children with disabilities to proper education. Upon hearing the discussion between Tammy and her supporters, Amanda turned to Lorena saying, "Are you hearing this? It sounds like a plan," Lorena said with a sigh. "Aren't you gonna stop her?" She kept her silence with her remark and ended the conversation. Tragedy at the concert. Saturday, September 15, 2018. The event was all about raising awareness of the importance of the right of children with disabilities to proper education, which is finally taking place in cooperation with renowned recording artists in the country. The tickets have been sold out, and the grand opening ceremony has started. Somewhere, backstage, helping with the production people double-check the equipment, Amanda was in her usual mode of assuring that everything is in tip-top condition. Tammy, on the other hand, sitting in a corner, was reviewing the scripts that had been prepared for her speech, being the host of the show. Meanwhile, arguing with the event organizers for failing to obey proper security protocols, Lorena was interrupted by Shigeru, unexpectedly sneaking from behind and startling her. From the moment the two decided to tie the knot, they couldn't seem to keep their hands off each other in public. "Gotcha!" startling his wife with his sudden appearance. "How many times do I have to tell you to stop harassing normal people?" Shigeru said while pulling her away from the organizers. Lorena looked gorgeous in her white poplin blouse and cropped skinny tattered jeans, while Shigeru wore a black 501 original fit and a crisp white t-shirt with a Star Wars A New Hope print, Japanese movie poster. Raising her husband's round hippie John Lennon sunglasses to his forehead, Lorena continues to embrace Shigeru while pointing to the hovering drone flying over their heads and waving in the process. The stadium was fully packed with several thousand excited spectators looking forward to seeing performances from their favorite local artists. 6 drones were deployed with high-resolution cameras to help observe the event, and the surveillance was doing great. No riots or any other form of civil disorder, just a couple of very young teenagers wearing expensive kigurumi, animal costumes for adults, that Tammy commissioned to be tailored and with matching crutches too. Amanda was about to take a break when she noticed a peculiar white Ford Ranger with customized body stickers on the south side of the stadium. No one was supposed to be permitted to park there. Making a quick call at her two-way radio, she described the vehicle on the south side. Listening to the radio, Lorena and Shigeru rushed to the gates. Coming from the other side of the stadium, Shigeru called it in, alerting security of the gravity of the matter, but they were too late. A loud explosion had already occurred at the first gate where the Ford Ranger was parked. The blast ripped off the entire concrete wall on the main entrance, resulting in confusion and panic among the fans, triggering the stampede. The blast took out 23 people and left 112 injured in both explosion and stampede combined. Leaping through the rubble, Shigeru instantly helped Lorena to her feet as they both stared at the casualties around them. Amanda had warned her about this, but she didn't listen and felt responsible. Lorena, remembering Amanda, quickly ran towards her sister's last location, which was in front of the stage, and saw them safe, helping others. According to a separate investigation conducted by the National Bureau of Investigation, NBI, and the Explosive Ordnance Disposal Unit, EOD, Semtex explosives were used and stashed inside the white Ford Ranger, possibly by a man who resembled Lorena's biological father. The man, as revealed by CCTV footage, was seen running a few seconds before the explosion. Eye of the storm. On a cold and windy night with a slight drizzle due to a low pressure, Shigeru listens as the silent waves heighten its sound, crushing to the rocky shore. The sea was so empty and black as far as his eyes can see. After the fateful incident that took place at the concert, Lorena decided to take refuge in Talisiri, where she knew that her sisters could have peace of mind. Emerging from the darkness was a group of men who were about to carry their fellow fishermen's pump boat from sea to an elevated concrete ramp to secure it from the incoming storm. Shigeru watches as the 6 men secure the pump boat. "We call that Bayanihan," Leto said, interrupting the silence, and joining Shigeru at the Nipa hut. "What's Bayanihan?" Shigeru asked. "It's a symbolic tradition that expresses our unity as proud Filipinos. In the olden days, a group of strong men would carry a whole house, transferring it to its new location." "That's interesting," Shigeru said. "Well, of course, that kind of tradition is no longer applicable since most of the houses are now made of concrete," Leto said. Earlier that morning, Leto was telling a story that happened a long time ago when one of their fishermen got in trouble for possession of a fine meshed net with 2 to 3 centimeters measured between 2 opposite knots. These were illegal because it also captures the younger fish too small to reproduce, and kills them in the process. As the story goes, 2 groups of fishermen from Tanki, Talisiri went out to sea when they got caught by the Bantui Dagat, sea guard, and were threatening to confiscate their boats. They tried their best to be diplomatic, explaining that their family would starve if they didn't go out to sea. But the Bantui Dagat persisted, and when the fishermen realized that the talks were going nowhere, they made a run for it and managed to reach the rocky shore. There were warning shots fired, and that's when the people gathered up, picking up a few chunks of stones and throwing them to the Bantui Dagat authorities. It was a game of tug-of-war, as the Bantui Dagat authorities were dragging the pump boat with a rope, away from the shore. Seeing that their efforts were useless against the persistence of the people, they have finally decided to give up and let them live in peace. As a sign of appreciation, the fishermen threw in some of their prize catch to the authorities and bid them farewell. Hearing this story made Shigeru realize why Lorena was so persistent in running there for asylum. It's quite apparent that the people there would do anything to protect their own. Moments later, the Katsuyori sisters arrived with a set of empty cups and a handful of coffee sachets. "Let's just wait for Auntie Tata, she's boiling more water," Lorena said as she arranged the tin cups on the table. The Nipa hut in the Baybayin has a special place in the hearts of the people living there in Tanki, witnessing 1,000 storms, the rise and fall of aspirations, and the unrelenting persistence of the men and women who fought to give their families a better future. Built from a large kamagong timber drifting out into the sea, the Nipa hut or Bohari Kubo had 2 wooden block benches attached to a neckplate in a standing pillar joint. It served as a reserve for fishermen to leave their fishing nets and other belongings while they were out in the sea. They also use this shelter to fix their engine whenever their boat is in trouble, or the place where they could sleep in bad weather. Looking over his head, Shigeru sees an antique canoe carved out of hard solid wood, hanging on the collar beam of the roof of the Nipa hut. He touches the rough surface of the wooden pillar beams filled with huge holes, and he is astounded because he knew it wasn't the termite that made the holes. It was salt water. With his eyes closed, he listens to the pillars of wood as if they were whispering, telling the story of the people and their will to survive. A few minutes later, with a hot water thermos, 2 loaves of bread, and a glass of Lily's peanut butter, Tata finally arrived. Joining their company was Esteban, and a few fishermen. "The weather is very cold and windy, you should double your clothes," Esteban said. "Thank you so much for your concern, but I should be okay. Underneath this polo shirt, I'm wearing a thermal sando. It's keeping me warm." Esteban nodded in agreement. "You know, there's a low pressure coming. I heard that in the news," Shigeru mentioned. "Oh yeah, I'm aware of that. Let's hope it doesn't turn into a tropical storm." "I'll drink to that," Shigeru replied, raising his cup, and he took a sip of the coffee. "You know, I have so much admiration for the people who live here. It's a tough life." "It's definitely tough, but you're not doing bad for yourself. So far, I haven't seen you complain or show any signs of discomfort," replied Esteban. "Because I'd probably whack his brain off if he complained," Lorena said as she appeared from nowhere and sat beside Shigeru. "Apparently, I do have a few discomforts of my own." "Like what?" Lorena asked. "Lack of proper toilets," Shigeru replied. "Now that I've mentioned it, where do people go when they need to poop?" he added. Looking around, in the darkness of the night, Lorena spots 2 teenage girls by the shore. "You see that girl standing over there?" "Yes." "See her companion behind her sitting?" "Holy shit. No way. Why did you show me that? That's an invasion of privacy." Lorena bursting into laughter. "You're the one who asked the question, and besides, they're in plain sight, how could that be an invasion of privacy? You're overreacting." Shigeru looked closely. "What is she doing?" "She's pooping." "That's disgusting." "Wait a minute, are you saying that you haven't pooped since we got here?" "Oh, my poor baby," said Lorena, laughing, and everyone else followed. When everyone began to settle down, Esteban said something that none of the sisters had prepared for. "You know, today's weather was the same as when Lorena's father was washed out here in Talisiri," Esteban said, immediately catching everyone's attention. "What do you mean washed out?" Amanda asked. Responding to the reactions of the 3 sisters, Tata drew closer, pulling the round metal chair on which she sat, and inquisitively asked them if they knew anything about their true ancestry. The sisters were more confused, not knowing how to react. Tata smiled and answered, as Esteban had said, "It was in the same weather that your father, Samuel, swam on these shores. We were sitting here on the same spot when he came out of the sea. He barely walked because of a gunshot wound, and we never questioned why he was wounded, or where he came from. It doesn't matter." Tata paused for a few seconds to take a sip of the coffee. "What we do know is that your father's true nationality is Chinese." "What?" Tammy exclaimed. "You're only kidding, right? Where do you think those fabulous chinky eyes came from?" "No way. Why didn't anybody tell us about this?" Lorena asked. "It's probably the same reason I think I do." "Which is?" "We've always thought you knew." Expressing her frustration, Lorena walked out from the presence of the elders. The old lady in the barrio. Reacting to Lorena's disrespectful action, Shigeru instinctively began to seek an apology for his wife's temper, but was quickly told not to do so. Tata said that they should be the one seeking forgiveness. She continued by telling a story of an old lady in the barrio called Nana Ida, who suffered from edema. She said that Nana Ida used to be a street vendor who was very fond of Lorena and was always there for her in the absence of her mother. One day, while Lorena's father was away for many weeks, Nana Ida felt sick and was rushed to the hospital due to congestive heart failure and required coronary bypass surgery. The hospital declined to conduct the procedure until they gave a down payment. Lorena didn't have any money at that time, and none of them offered any help. At one point in Lorena's life, she has been a drug user and was well acquainted with all the drug lords, both in the area of Talisiri and elsewhere, and when all hopes were lost for Nana Ida, that's when she decided to rob a known drug lord in Pitos. She daringly sneaked into their territory, got captured, battered and raped. After 3 days of captivity, with the help of Shella May, she had managed to escape, but it was too late. Nana Ida was dead. Lorena showed up at the funeral with the money needed for the surgery, blood-stained and bruised. When Shigeru asked where Lorena got the money, Tata's response was, from the same drug lord who tortured and raped her. As Tata narrated, she killed all of them and took away all the drug money, 50 grams of suspected shabu, methamphetamine hydrochloride, worth 590,000 pesos. And what did she do with all the illegal drugs? Did she sell them? Shigeru asked. She wanted to but later decided to throw it all out into the sea, Tata replied. How about jail time? She never went to jail. No, everyone vouched for her alibi. We protected her from the authorities, while Boyet was the one who took the blame for her bruises. From that day forward, she was either feared or respected. Anything in between that is sure to get hurt, Tata replied. Thank you for sharing. Now I know why she chose to run here for refuge, Shigeru replied, ending the conversation between them. More questions. On the horizon, a mass of clouds with heavy thunderstorms formed, and it began to rain. Huge drops dripped through the holes in the roof, leaking from the table. The elders offered to continue their discussion some other time, but Tammy wanted to hear more. Auntie Tata, please tell us how our parents met, asked Tammy eagerly. It was Yo-Yo Orwi, your grandfather, who did most of the matchmaking, answered Tata. When he gave refuge to him, on the day he was washed up here on these shores, your mother was in Manila processing her papers to go to Japan. During those times, Yo-Yo Orwi and your father bonded and encouraged him to marry your mother. My mother went to Japan. Tammy asked. No, she never gets to go there because of your father, explained Tata. Was it love at first sight? Yes, it was, for the both of them. Was she pretty? Yes, she is, she's very pretty. She was a fair-skinned woman with huge brown eyes. She had abundant hair, but for some reason, she always kept it short. Nevertheless, she was the most beautiful in the barrio. Tammy's mind began to wander to a place where the shadows of her mother lay. It was a better place where she found comfort. Wish I could see my mother again. Reaching to her duster pocket, Tata took out an antique pocket watch and gave it to Tammy, and when she opened the cover she saw a picture of her mother. That belonged to your father. He gave it to me for safekeeping. I'm pretty sure he would want you to have it. Close to tears, Tammy kissed her mother's image and wondered. Auntie, do you think I'll ever see my mother? I'm afraid I don't have an answer to that question, dear. But all I can say is that, if that day ever comes, I'm sure she'll be overjoyed to see how lovely you are. Tammy smiled and gave her auntie a high five. Tata, can I also ask you a question? Shigeru asked. What is it? Samuel and Peter Katsuyori were supposed to go on a fishing trip on the day of the Great Fire. What do you know about this? I didn't realize they knew each other. When Peter arrived here in Cebu, I was very much present on all occasions. I have no memory of the two being introduced. Who told you this? Peter did. He mentioned a certain Joselito Katindig. Who is Joselito Katindig? Tata asked. According to Peter, he was a police officer, a resident here. I've been a resident of Tanki, and I haven't lived anywhere else. I'm pretty sure he's not from here. If that's the case, he must have given him a different name. What is this all about? He knew about the planned meeting between Peter and Samuel. Okay, so why is that so important? I believe that Samuel may have intentionally arranged that meeting in secret to warn Peter Katsuyori about the array. So any person aware of that meeting would have been a trusted friend. And you're hoping this person might know the truth about Samuel? Tata asked. Yes. I see. I'm sorry, but I really have no idea who this person is. It's okay, I understand, Shigeru replied. The Chinese Vagabond. Monday, August 16, 1986, marine weather forecast for Cebu says that a weather disturbance was estimated at 2,280 kilometers east of Visayas, rapidly gaining more strength and will eventually become a tropical cyclone. Cebu government officials urged the evacuation, especially for the ones living by the seashore. Meanwhile, on the shoreline of Talisiri City, on board a Norwegian flag tanker vessel, Deng Wucho rushes to his cabin to gather all of his documents as Philippine Coast Guard draws closer to the freighter. The captain signals his crew to prepare for an immediate boarding inspection. On a desperate attempt to escape, he heads towards the stern of the vessel at the opposite side of the boarding Philippine Coast Guards. Caught red-handed committing treason at the FBI headquarters, he had been imprisoned for 2 years before he had finally negotiated a bargain with the FBI to catch the array, a deal that would give him a chance to double-cross and escape. But now the FBI has caught up with him again. Those who are skilled in the use of strategy, evade when enemy spirit is sharp and confront when idle. Sun Tzu, Art of War. On board the 12-meter high-speed boats of the Philippine Coast Guard, Arthur Schultz, the head of the FBI team who will not hesitate at any length in tracking down Deng Wucho, eagerly boarded the freighter. Left with the scar that bears his mark, he has vowed to hunt him down even to the edge of the earth, just to put him back behind bars. Coming up from his cabin, he rushed forward to the stern. The FBI had already boarded the freighter, and he saw Arthur Schultz leading them. He had to think quickly. Drowning in deep water was the least of his problems for the time being draining against him. "Sir! Please don't wander off, stay in your cabin," the crew member yelled. "I lost my passport, I can't find it." "You think you can call the captain?" Running out of excuses to say, without hesitation, he threw himself into the open seas. "Man overboard," another crew member cried out. The captain rushed to the quarter-deck and ordered a nautical lifesaver to be thrown at the man he believed to be drowning, but Arthur Schultz immediately opened fire despite the presence of the Philippine Coast Guard Sea Marshals, acting without respect to proper authorities. Quick to react by disarming Arthur Schultz, the Coast Guard restrained him on the floor, preventing possible diplomatic issues between their two countries. Deng Wucho was a Chinese child prodigy with outstanding mathematical and linguistic skills. He graduated summa cum laude at 12 years of age at Peking University in Beijing with an estimated IQ of 250. Together with his best friend Dimitri Gerber, they would later become the most prolific hackers conducting cyberattacks using the most advanced artificial intelligence software ever created. Wounded when Arthur Schultz opened fire, darkness fell over Deng Wu as he struggled to swim to shore. His wounds were deep-seated, serious but not life-threatening. The wind was starting to blow hard as he gasps and chokes for air, his body weakens, but his heart gets stronger and sees the shore. Regardless of the unfavorable weather, teenage boys were swimming in the seashore, climbing from one pump boat to another, jumping and splashing to the water. The fisherman Esteban, along with other men, was securing the ropes of their pump boats at the baybayin when he noticed a figure emerging from the waters. The bloodstains on his white polo shirt were very visible, and the teenage boys all came to his aid first, while all of the fishermen followed. It was unclear where the wounded stranger had come from. There weren't any boats near the shore, nor were there any shipwrecks reported. He sustained gunshot wounds that required immediate treatment, and judging from the absence of ships around, he may already have lost a lot of blood. Esteban ordered someone to get the medicine kit while they joined 2 mahjong tables at the Nipa hut, where they laid him down to rest. Still conscious with a little bit of strength, Deng Wu pleaded, and in a piteous voice, "Please hide me, I'm willing to pay you at whatever cost." "Who did this to you, my friend? Who is after you? What is your name?" Esteban asked. Deng Wu pleaded, openly admitting that he was a fugitive, but concealed his identity under the name Samuel. The men and women who were present that day were surprised to hear what the wounded stranger confessed. One of the elders in the barangay, Yo-Yo Orwi, admiring his honesty, convinced everyone to keep his identity a secret and welcomed him into his house and personally took care of him until he recovered. 3 weeks have passed since he first arrived, and Samuel is now fully recovered and has made frequent visits to the city with the support of Yo-Yo Orwi. Inside a fully air-conditioned room, aside from all the renovations that he did and furniture that he has bought, Samuel has been working his magic, setting up his brand new Commodore 64, with an enormous 1 MHz CPU, 64 KB of RAM, and was about to finish. There was a rapid knocking at the door. "Samuel! Stop working and come and join us downstairs. It's my birthday." Door quickly swung open. "Today is your birthday?" Samuel asked. "Yes. 6 months from now," Yo-Yo Orwi replied jokingly. Samuel didn't think he'd be able to finish anything that day with all the loud noise the people were making downstairs, so might as well join the fun, he thought to himself. Everybody was cheering and tossing their glasses the moment Samuel came down from the stairs, while a heavily tattooed neighbor holding the microphone and a bottle of Red Horse was singing Frank Sinatra's "My Way" on a rented karaoke. "Good Lord, you guys are mixing drinks." On one side of the room, a group of men and women were drinking a gallon of tuba, while on the other side, he was seeing another group with 3 cases of assorted beers, a few bottles of Tanduay 5 years, and Emperador lights. "Hey baby, come sit by my lap," Tata said teasingly. The atmosphere was loud, with everybody laughing and enjoying themselves. "Samuel, can I have some money to buy cigarettes?" Yo-Yo Orwi asked. "Sure." Samuel, reaching out to his wallet and pulling out some cash. "Oh. Yo-Yo Orwi, can you also ask somebody to go to Larawan to buy leshen? 2 kilos of leshen should be enough for everybody, right?" Entrusting the 2,000 pesos to the one who volunteered to buy. "By the way, Samuel, you should save some money because my daughter's arrival is next week," Yo-Yo Orwi said, reminding Samuel. "I didn't know you had a daughter. Where is she?" "She's been staying in Manila," said Yo-Yo Orwi, sitting on a low wooden chair. Wobbly and with his eyes closed, he reached into his pocket and handed Samuel a pocket-size photograph of her. Samuel momentarily laughed at the intoxicated Yo-Yo Orwi but felt mesmerized by the beauty of his daughter, staring at the photo. He wanted to know her name, but Yo-Yo Orwi had fallen asleep. "That is Monet Bernadette," the neighbor Tata replied. "You like her, don't you?" Responding with a smile, Samuel shouted "Kampai," raising his glass, and bringing everyone's glasses together. A week later, together with her best friend Leonora, on board a ferry from Manila to Cebu, Bernadette Byatt traveled 22 hours and had just docked at the port of Cebu. Carrying with them a 5-foot Winnie the Pooh stuffed toy. The taxi driver had barely managed to squeeze the giant plush toy into his cab, requesting an additional fee. The 2 ladies were of exceptional beauty, with unwavering support for each other. 2 years older than Bernadette, Leonora or Nora, had a vulgar personality, exotic beauty, and was a natural morena that was very alluring, especially among foreigners. She had a slender body standing at about 5 feet and 6 inches with well-maintained long hair and with beautiful, glowing skin. Losing both of her parents at a very young age, Leonora grew up to be a strong-willed woman, and though she is known to be a prostitute, she was still very much respected in their barangay for having a good heart. Bernadette, on the other hand, was much of a shy person. She had short hair equal to that of a boy's cut, with wide brown eyes and a fair complexion. Unfortunately, her pouty lips, relatively bigger buttocks, and big bosom made her a laughing stock in her younger years, taunted as an ugly duckling by kids of the same age, giving her insecurities that affected her school performance. Her inability to concentrate properly in her studies made her decide to stop schooling at an early age, leaving her parents helpless against her own will. People close to her called her Mang, a short for Mang or ignorant. Mang, wait here with Winnie the Pooh, while I ask the Tambay, loiter, to help us with our baggage, Leonora said as she stepped down the cab to call for help. There was a lot of Tambay there to choose from, swarming around the taxicab like buzzing bees, but many of them were thieves and cannot be trusted. A few minutes later, Leonora was back with Martin, Iliad, and Tom Cruise, disturbing them from their early afternoon drinking session. Martin was holding the giant Winnie the Pooh, while the other two were carrying heavy boxes. The two ladies carried their own bags. Before heading toward her house, Bernadette decided to drop by Leonora's house first to drink a glass of cold water. They expected that her relatives would be eagerly waiting for their arrival for their pasalubong, souvenirs, but surprisingly, nobody was there. Tom Cruise, where have all of the folks gone? Leonora asked. They are all at Bernadette's house, Tom Cruise replied. Just go there. Since Leonora was well aware that it was Bernadette's birthday and judging from the 2 to 3 people who have passed by with paper plates filled with spaghetti, pancit, and Leshen, she had a hunch on what was happening, and the Tambay Tom Cruise did confirm. It was supposed to be a surprise party, but with all the guests who attended, half a dozen people had already greeted her happy birthday even before they reached Bernadette's house. As soon as they reached the house, being surprised would be an understatement, for Bernadette was shocked to see the construction fully completed. The concrete block walls were now meticulously cemented, the aging plywood walls on the second floor, replaced, and the once corroded steel roof, was now made of expensive concrete clay. There were even 2 air conditioning units installed on the second floor. Bernadette, seeing her good friend Tata holding a paper plate filled with scrumptious Leshen, called her attention, shouting her name. Indri Tata. Bernadette. Tata shouted. Welcome home, and happy birthday, she added. What's going on here? Why is our house like this? Who paid for all the renovations? At that very moment, the steel gate swung open, with her father greeting her happy birthday, grabbed her luggage, and introduced her to Samuel, who was sitting right in front of them along with a group of men drinking Tanduay 5 years. Seemingly embarrassed, Samuel made everybody stand up as he greeted Bernadette with a happy birthday, which brought a faint blush to her cheeks. Samuel possesses great stature and authority over the people around him, including herself. He was very handsome and highly attractive, and for a brief moment, she might have prayed that Samuel would have some special feelings for her. In the middle of everything, Leonora interfered saying, "Oha why gozaimasu." Leonora said, thinking that Samuel was Japanese. "I'm Chinese, not Japanese," Samuel replied. "Oh, sumimasen. I mean, I'm sorry," Leonora replied. Turning back his attention to Bernadette. "Yo-Yo Oi has been telling me so much about you that it feels like I already know you. I have seen all of your pictures in your photo albums, and I think you're much prettier in person." Bernadette blushed at the unexpected compliment and was speechless, for no men have ever had the freedom to say such words, especially in front of his father. But clearly, Yo-Yo Oi favored the young man, which made Bernadette very happy. "Come, let's go to the Beibein, all of the food is there, you girls must be starving," Samuel said. "Why did you place all the food there?" Bernadette asked. "I have 2 whole pigs being spit roasted over charcoal at the Beibein for your birthday, and since all of the cooking is happening over there, I might as well have the catering in that area," Samuel explained. "Wow. So what are we waiting for?" Leonora said, putting her arms around Samuel close to an embrace, speeding up the pace. With Samuel being dragged by Leonora, Bernadette was left behind, but still smiling. Leonora had his arms wrapped around Samuel that day, but Bernadette was neither jealous nor offended. Everybody knows that Leonora is just like that to any foreigners around. For Bernadette, having not lost eye contact with Samuel that day was enough for her. The leather journal cover. Saturday, September 22, 2018, standing at the edge of a rocky shore, gazing at the supermoon rising above the horizon, Shigeru lit a cigarette as he observed a group of fishermen come home from a long day's work. Esteban followed, lighting his own. A week had already passed since the tragedy at the concert, killing 23 people. Stricken by uncertainties and despair, Lorena blames herself for the incident and could not forgive herself for making the grave mistake. Cleaning from inside the house, Tata was collecting dirty laundry when she noticed a bag with a Death Note design from Comic Alley. Out of curiosity and admiration, she picked it up and took a closer look. "Oh, you found my comic book bag," Tammy said. "What's inside?" Tata thoughtfully asked. "Okay, gimme, I will show you," Tammy said, grabbing and unzipping the bag. Pulling on the inside, Tammy shows her auntie a series of manga-style comics. "These are my Star Wars manga collection, auntie," Tammy said, handing her one of comic book titles, Star Wars Leia, Princess of Alderaan, Volume 1. Flipping through the pages, Tata discovers that it was written entirely in Japanese, and was eager to know if she can read in Japanese. "Yes, auntie, I can read in Japanese. All of our textbooks are in kanji, why are you asking?" Tata spoke of a journal that she had found that may have belonged to her father. Written in a foreign language, she thought that it too might have been written in kanji, so she took the journal from its hiding place and showed it to Tammy. But as Tammy checked the content of the notebook, it was apparent that the writing wasn't kanji. They were Chinese characters. Not knowing how to translate the writing, she approached her sisters for assistance. "This journal indeed belongs to our father. I remember seeing him writing on these pages on his desk when we were little," Lorena said, flipping through its pages. Accepting the task of transcribing the journal, Lorena wasted no time. But there was one item that came along with the journal that took Shigeru's attention. It was a piece of paper that says, "To my dearest Dengwu Cho, with my best revolutionary regards, Carlos. La Santi 1978. The piece of paper gave Shigeru the impression that the name Carlos mentioned was the international terrorist Ilic Ramirez Sanchez, better known as Carlos the Jackal. Lorena worked on the transcription of the journal day and night, and in 3 weeks, with the help of automated transcription software, she had already finished. A sense of dread grew as she went through her notes, and with every sentence that followed. The beginning of the journal was a lot about Samuel's life as Dengwu Cho and past operations at the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, PFLP. The hunch of Shigeru was right. It was the PFLP that sent him to school and invested in his education for the sole purpose of getting him into the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI. He spoke of the Ghost Protocol project, which was his brainchild. A project that he began working on long before he joined the PFLP. The Yūrei was the engineered program he referred to, and he worked as a double agent. Designed to be a top-secret weapon for the FBI's cyber division to infiltrate suspected hackers' computers and networks, the Ghost Protocol, aka Yūrei, was a software of self-calculation and self-actualization tailored for ethical hackers under the payroll of the department. Showing a lot of success and breakthroughs during its early stages of development, the Ghost Protocol surpassed the agency's expectations and outperformed the most sophisticated firewall in the market. During a breach at the NSA and the CIA headquarters, when the virus corrupted the system, the Ghost Protocol was first used, and it was successful. It immediately received all the praises and was immediately made a standard hacking tool for the department. But the truth of the matter is, the Ghost Protocol project and the Yūrei were one of the same. Under the FBI, the Ghost Protocol created encrypted backdoors that have allowed the agency to scan large volumes of traffic, gather vital intelligence in other countries, including the interception of terrorist communications, not knowing that the software itself was the primary backdoor for the infamous Yūrei. With his trusted friend, Dmitry Gerber, they ran the biggest hack of the century, stealing billions of dollars. While Samuel, aka Dengwu Cho, fought cyber crimes, Dmitry Gerber secretly used the agency's resources to create global havoc. This was the case before the Yūrei betrayed him, and he was in prison. Deceiving the FBI, he managed to escape and landed in Talisiri, where he dedicated his life, monitoring the activities of the Yūrei. Throughout the years, with the Ghost Protocol project's supremacy as a reverse engineering tool, the FBI has achieved a great deal of success and benefited from its human-like judgment, giving them better options in their intelligence research, unsuspecting the danger that lies within its secret codes. To his advantage, with the aid of his code clone detection algorithm, Samuel learns about Peter's involvement with the Yūrei in that small room, under the company of Yo-Yo Orui. He discovers that Peter and the Yūrei were developing advanced technical methods, industrial robots, and state-of-the-art applications for artificial intelligence through tent robotics. Other entries of equal importance were also mentioned in the pages, like details of her father's life in Cebu, his escape from Arthur Schultz, his arrival on the shores of Talisiri, and meeting the love of his life, Leonora. Seeing the name of Leonora, instead of her mother, had brought a stabbing pain in her chest, but she had to remain vigilant and took upon herself to hide this truth from her sisters. A soft knock on the door. "Lorena, this is Nora, can I come in?" "Come inside," Lorena replied, closing the lid of her laptop. "Sorry for coming without notice. I was in the neighborhood, and I just thought of giving you a visit. Tata let me in and told me to simply go upstairs and knock." "Yes, that is fine, I always enjoy your company, darling Nora." Judging from Lorena's appearance, it was clear that she was in distress and was trying to hide her pain. And seeing her in that condition, Leonora said, "Lorena, I've known you ever since you were born. I was the first person who held you up when you were delivered in this world. Did you know that?" Looking up to her, she responded, "Yes, I know the story. My mother delivered me in a taxi cab," she replied, and suddenly broke down in tears. Immediately rushing to her aid, Leonora sat beside her and gave her an embrace. "My child, what's bothering you? Please tell me." Lorena couldn't utter a word, and simply shook her head and smiled, staring. "You know, I've memorized every emotion and facial expression in your face, and I know when you're in pain. If you don't want to tell me what's troubling you, it's all right. I'm here for you." Looking up at her face the second time, she silently spoke the words, "Can I ask you something?" "Yes, of course, what is it that you want to ask?" And in a soft voice, she spoke, "Is my eye makeup running?" Lorena asked jokingly, and they both laughed uncontrollably at the joke, falling on their knees and into the floor. After a few minutes, right after they collected themselves, Leonora said, "You know, the excursion that Tammy and Amanda prepared is happening this afternoon. Everyone is hoping you can join." "Okay," Lorena answered.